All right, so I got to be a little bit honest. In the past, coaching individual members of a team never really fired me up as much as individual competition. But going into this year's regionals with two of my coaches, one of my athletes, and then my coach's athletes, and a bunch of people that were training on site representing our brand and what we stand for, got me a lot more fired up this year. I think it added so much value to the community, and it added so many good experiences at regionals that it's something that now I'm pretty sure that I want to take more seriously moving on into next year.
The training think tank team, I mean, it was a group of people that you wouldn't have expected everyone to come together and mesh the way that they did and perform the way that they did.
The team was something that we were kind of discussing last year after regionals, and something that, all the coaches were talking about, it'd be awesome to get a group together that's training here, that we're helping kind of guide the process and, pushing them towards the regionals here. Kyle Spears came down and became a coach, and he's had a lot of experience on teams, made the games a couple of times. Mike McGoldrick moves down. I have a young athlete, Joey Schweck, who came on board, and he's a really young, talented athlete.
Macy, who's a year into CrossFit. Brandy, who's an experienced team member, and Chastity, who's an experienced team member.
And it kind of fit. Everybody kind of came together, and everybody was kind of doing their own thing at first. Talked about a team, and Kyle Spears kind of spearheaded that, no pun intended, and worked really hard to put the team together. And then that kind of started rolling come November, December of last year, and then in January they kind of started training full time together. They would do their individual design throughout the week, but then they'd have team training.
For the team, I think one of the things that really stood out to me was their chemistry. So it was 6 individuals, maybe 2 of them had worked out before coming into this regionals. The lead up to it, they kind of all got thrown together, and they really figured out a situation and a dynamic that worked for them. So Kyle, been to the games before on a team, he stepped into this leadership role, and everybody else they recognized it, they accepted their own roles on the team, and that dynamic it worked, it clicked, and they really got the best out of themselves as a result of that.
I think they really did become friends this past year. They definitely became more than just teammates. They had each other's back. They really cared about the other people on the team. And so, when it comes down to creating a group of people that are going to sacrifice for each other, you want people who have a tighter bond than just, some t-shirt that they're wearing.
I've seen, and even this past year, we've seen examples of other teams where there's more than one person fighting for that spot, that leadership, that vocal role, that alpha male. Doesn't even have to be a male, it could be females. But the idea of people having multiple voices in their ears during a workout, different strategies, trying to stand out, being a hero inside of a workout, there's just not room for that. There's not room for that in the sport anymore. The team has to be operating on this continuous, what can I do to improve the team, not make myself stand out as an individual on the team. And everybody on Training Think Tank, they got it, they bought into it from day one.
Training with the team since the Open was fantastic. We were very organized and structured. We had like a mock competition weekend where we had other teams come in, and we got together, and like all 6 of us were there doing the workouts. We got a good simulation of what it feels like to compete against other teams and to go fast again. And we felt really good about that. As the workouts were released, we started training them and practicing them. And then I would say like 10 days out, we started to get a little chaotic. We started kind of second guessing ourselves on our strategies. We started trying to change a little bit too much. And we have really good chemistry on the team. It didn't cause any like issues, but you could tell that like some of us were getting a little beat up, and we're maybe second guessing like what we should be testing. And we finally, like the week before the competition, we had a really bad training session together, like the worst one that we've had as a team. And we haven't had any bad training sessions. So it was kind of scary thinking like, damn, we made it this far, and now we're going to start kind of like crumbling a little bit. So we called a meeting, we got everyone together, we talked about it, we put it behind us, and we basically just thought like, look, we've done so many good things up to this point, we've got to trust that we're fit enough right now, that our plans are good enough for who we are, regardless of what other teams are doing, and we just got to trust each other. So that meeting was really helpful, and it gave us a lot of confidence going into the weekend. And our goals for the weekend were not to qualify for the CrossFit Games. It's not that we don't believe we can do it, or that we don't want to try and win, but we also have very realistic expectations. Like, that's asking a lot for a rookie team the first year when we only train together for 5 or 6 months.
The expectations were not high. One of the things that we talked about is like, let's go out on the floor and make sure that we're just doing everything that we can to execute perfectly, right? So like the training designs, we were focused on creating a team environment that worked well to represent the brand, but it was less about winning and more about execution, more about focusing on what we could handle and what we were in control of.
Heading into workout one with the team, I really, at that point in the weekend, was just a spectator. I really didn't have that much of a role. I went in, I wished everyone good luck. We had one quick meeting beforehand about what my expectations were about, behavior and representing the brand and all just like the normal stuff that I'd want to be overseeing at that point. And then I really just watched to see what their body of work could do on game day.
To have Training Think Tank's name on that nameplate, up high at regionals, and to be wearing the TTT and the Corpus Animus on our shirts every day while we were there, and the effort is a choice. I mean, it's really hard not to go out there and go as hard as you can and do, an incredible job, the best we can, representing that brand for everybody that's a part of it.
Anytime you're part of an organization that you truly believe in, it's a lot more motivating to go out and represent that and represent it in a good name, which I think we did an excellent job of this year.
Our goal was to finish in the top 15. We exceeded that greatly. But another goal was to just go out there and make sure that we were a class act, so to speak. We weren't bitching at each other in the middle of workouts. We weren't arguing with judges. We were just going out there and getting the job done.
I've been on a team before, and I've worn a different brand and I've represented other gyms, but this to me was such a representation of so many parts of who I am and the community I'm around and the family and the friends and the people that I train with, that I felt confident, but I've also never been more nervous to own up to an expectation or an image to perform well representing this company. So much goes into it that I look at beyond, my own individual performance, how we act, outside of the training, around other people. What do we look like as an organization? And the team is a reflection of that. It's cool to be in the gym and, this morning I'm doing some split squats and I look up and I see Training Think Tank on the regionals banner. I don't know how else to say it other than I'm just really proud to represent this brand. I like what it stands for. I like that we can take what the brand stands for and put it into a team image to show, people working hard, working together, that, come from all different fitness backgrounds, that we came together and you can see this is Training Think Tank when we're out there competing. And I'm glad to have been a part of that, to help model that.
Workout one wasn't really something that we expected we would do that well on, and we met expectations and didn't do that well on it. And it's a hard feeling, if I'm just being honest, to have a shirt that represents everything that you stand for and a team that represents everything that you stand for, and then see a team in the middle of the pack. I know that can maybe potentially sound arrogant, like, oh, I expect to win or something like that. But the reality is, I think anybody that's really competitive would be lying to themselves if they didn't show up to a competition and not do as well as they wanted to do and not feel some sense of disappointment. Now, I wasn't disappointed in any performances. I didn't think there were anything that was done shittily. I just wasn't really that happy or pumped up to see the name of my organization at that place on the leaderboard.
Event 2 was the thruster burpee workout with the worm. I mean, absolutely terrible workout. So much fun though. We crushed it. I think we beat our training time. We got 4th in the event, I think, which was just mind-blowing for us. We knew going in that the mixed movement CrossFit style workouts would be kind of tough for us just because of our gymnastics background, but we knew that as a team we could crush the worm workouts just because it straight up comes down to communication, trusting each other, and just like raw athleticism, really. So we did really well in that, and I think just based on how the other teams did, it actually set us pretty high. I think we were like 11th or top 10 after the first 2 events, and we were like, cool, like we're competitive.
Then they come out and workout 2 was much better. I think they finished 4th and moved up the leaderboard pretty substantially into the final heat. And that kind of set the tone for the weekend, where I was like, maybe even though we kind of just chopped this team up together and, they didn't prepare together for that long, and there are some people on the team that are pretty new to the sport and some that have pretty big holes in their competitive capacity in the sport that were being tested. Maybe we can compete as a result of good game plans, good teamwork, good communications, and maybe we could be in the mix. And it kind of started getting me more and more and more excited as we went.
After day 1, we wake up, we're feeling good. Event 3, day 2 starts. Again, it's not something that historically we thought we would do great at because of just the amount of bar muscle ups. But we were very confident in our plan, and we stuck to it, and we ended up all doing better times than we did in training, and we ended up getting 5th place in that event, 4th or 5th place. Again, not expected, very happy with though, and purely just because we know our bodies so well, we stuck to our plan and it paid off.
Then they went out in the start of day 2 and had a really good start to day 2. I think they finished 4th again, which then moved them into a more of a qualifying position. That was kind of just there was just so much happiness and joy and almost confusion and epiphanies and so many things going on. Now, do I need to say anything? Should I go in and try to motivate them? I've already kind of made my bed and let them coach themselves and let them go through this process. And I don't want to be overly involved because they've obviously, with the help that I did in preparation, Brandon helped in preparation, Kyle, Mike, they all helped prepare each other for the weekend. And I think it showed that they were doing a really good job. And now I think my feeling and my desire to try to control and make sure that this ended in a good way kind of took over. And I had to remember, hey, calm down. This is something that's bigger than you and you're not in control of. And, you just get to enjoy this process, but you're not in control of this process, which is kind of a metaphor, a microcosm of what my actual business and my actual life and life in general is like. So it was just a really cool learning experience.
So after event 3, that's when the weekend got kind of crazy for me personally. I've been dealing kind of with a teres major strain leading up to the competition. It wasn't that bad, but I have not been 100% confident in pulling from a bar. And I'm pretty sure I tore it in event 3. So that left me with the decision of, damn, do I continue forward? How bad is it? Is it something that I need to pull out? I really don't know. It was torn, but it wasn't my arm couldn't work. I could move it. It was just really freaking painful. So I didn't know what to do because, I'm wearing 3 hats at this time. I'm a coach. I'm trying to make a good decision for my body. I'm trying to do something that would reflect on how I would treat my other athletes. I wouldn't want them to sacrifice themselves. I wouldn't want anyone else on the team to sacrifice themselves. As an athlete, I'm thinking damn, I've trained for a year for this to get back. I'm finally here at regionals again. I'm competing. I don't want this to slip away, all because of something that might happen. Again, I have no idea how bad the tear is. And then I have the husband side of me that's this could cause a lot of money. You got to go get MRIs. You might have to get surgery. You've got to make a responsible decision here. So all that's kind of weighing in my head in between events 3 and 4. And I'm just I don't know what to do. I definitely don't want to let my team down. I know they would understand, but I wouldn't be able to live with that, especially because after 3 events, we've bumped up to, top 5 almost. We're moving closer and closer, something just beyond our expectations.
And now you have a situation that you got to deal with. You got to say okay, well, do I step in and send him to a medical practitioner to stop him from competing, in which case he could, not disappoint the other 5 members of the team? Do I tell him that it's his call to make? Do I allow him to potentially make it worse? Where do I step in? And at this point, the team's panicked. We don't really know what to do. We don't really know what to say. And ultimately, I just kind of stepped in and me and Mike had a discussion. I basically gave him his 2 options. I said, look, this is something that only you can know how it feels and what you're capable of going through. You have 2 options. You step out and you preserve yourself and you don't mess your body up, and we have a discussion as a team that the best thing to do is stop, or you go out there and you do the best you have with what you got, and you be smart on the floor that if you feel something that's gonna potentially impact your long-term health, you stop.
I just decided, fuck it. Like, I've worked too hard. I've gotten this far to get back into a competition setting. If it goes, it goes. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. I don't want to spend time worrying about what might have happened, and even worse, like, have the whole team pull out because of that.
You know, Mike is a savage, and once I made it clear what his 2 decisions were, it was not even a decision. He was just like, okay, he knew that he had my complete support, that he wouldn't let me down if he pulled out. And I think once he knew that, it was almost like, okay, well, that's not even an option. So it's cool to be able to see the character of people and what they represent, and, you know, to be validated that you're bringing people that you really love and respect on board on the team, that are willing to fight for something that's bigger than theirs, in spite of it potentially being in some ways self-sacrificial. But, you know, anybody who's an athlete knows that it's not really self-sacrificial, and there's something that comes out of it.
And it ended up being okay. Like, event 4 was fine. It was legless rope climbs and Warren push press going shoulder to overhead, and we did really well in that event. I think we ended up like a top 10 in that, which, you know, again, like, gymnastics not being our strong suit, we handled it well. You know, we had a couple of hiccups on, like, the worm being disorienting, but we dealt with it and we adapted and we did really well. So ending day 2, we're in like 4th or 5th place. We can't believe ourselves. We're like, holy shit, like, we could actually qualify. Like, we could go to the CrossFit Games. What is going on?
At the end of the day, we're feeling pretty confident. We look up and we're in 5th place. Like, wow, that escalated pretty quickly.
Night 2 in the hotel, Chastity stayed with me, and I was just all over the place. I was bouncing off the walls. I had taken like 4 bubble baths to try to just calm down, and I was just ecstatic. Like, even just the thought of being able to go to the games, like, with these individuals, just, I love them to death. Like, we do everything together, like weekends, we'll hang out, do game night. So it was just neat to think that we might be able to share that this year, just with only since like December leading up to regionals, with that much time together. But yeah, that second night was just probably the worst sleep, the worst recovery, because I definitely didn't do a good job of just focus on the day ahead. I was just too excited to think that we were like 5th place for a second.
I think it was just almost motivating. It's like, wow, we can do this. We have a chance. We're not just trying to be a top 15 or top 10 team. We have the potential, if we play our cards right, to be that 4th or 5th place team.
Once we started to realize kind of that we could qualify, I wanted to make sure that we just kind of stayed even keel and just focused on doing the best we could each workout. I think when you start to put pressure on yourself, like, oh, we're in 6th place, oh, we're in a qualifying spot, that's when things start to kind of unravel.
So, you know, we all go eat some pizza and chill out and go to bed. We wake up the next morning and we're bumped out of the top 5. Apparently there was like a scoring error, and one of the teams had some reps adjusted, which I guess they deserved in the workout, and it put us out of a contention spot. And again, like we said, we didn't have expectations of going, but when you get a brief glimpse of, you know, that there is a possible chance you can go, you start to get greedy and you want that. You're like, well, no, now it's not about like, oh, well, I only had expectations of top 15. Like, I can take this and I want this. And we felt like that was taken from us a little bit. So that was something that as a team we had to get over really quickly. And that's really hard. Like, when you see yourself knocked down out of a qualifying spot, like it's a lot of pressure. And yeah, you know, it just kind of pisses you off. You want to be in contention and you want to be in that top 5 spot.
In that period from the end of workout 3 to the end of the weekend, it was really way more of an emotional roller coaster. So it started out where it was like, like, you know, what's going to happen? And then it kind of turned into like, oh, a little bit of disappointment. This might not go out. And then like started to get fired up like, oh, this feels good. Like we're going to do well. We're in the final heat. And then, oh my God, we might qualify. And then your imagination starts to get over and it's like, you know, foreplay, this like anticipation where you're getting ready for something really good to happen. And then, you know, like all competitions, delivering the blows left and right. You don't really know what's going to happen. There ended up being a pretty dramatic no rep call on the last rep of the overhead squats in, I think that was workout 5.
I finished my 20th rep. I bring the dumbbell down by my side, drop it, run across the finish line. We're all super excited, and then all of a sudden, Mike's pushing me back onto the floor, telling me he no-repped, said I dropped the dumbbell. So I snatch it back up, get in a crazy, ugly, good rep. Drop the kettlebell again, finish, and then there's all kinds of crazy controversy going on. We weren't sure what happened, exactly why we got the no rep at the time.
That created a lot of confusion and chaos, and people don't realize how many emotions athletes go through on the competition floor to make happen what they make happen. You look at them and you're like, oh, they're just doing thrusters. Like, there's no problem. Like, they're just working hard. You don't realize that they're like full of rage, and inside they're like, come on, go, come on, you can do this, come on. Oh, I gotta fucking beat them. And there's so much going on underneath the hood that we don't really fully understand unless we get back in the battlefields ourselves. So when things like that happen, it's a really, really, really profound experience for the team, because the no rep is called, and then they all love each other and they're in battle together, and they want to protect their person from feeling disappointment or like they fucked up, they don't know what to do, the crowd's screaming, everyone's confused, they don't know what one judge versus a head judge is telling them, so it kind of just turns into absolute chaos. And up until that point of the weekend, I didn't really have any involvement, but I knew at that point that I needed to step in and say something and do something, because if things got out of hand and there was something that went wrong, it still is in some ways my responsibility, because it is an organization that I created and that I'm a big part of and that I'm passionate about. So I went back, and obviously you got to let people vent, and you got to let them be sad, and you got to let them got to remind them that they didn't let anybody down, that that's part of competitions, that just how things roll. Sometimes it falls on your side of the, luck, and sometimes it falls on the opposite side of luck, and you got to take those blows and keep on going. And we kind of got together as a team, and we talked about how to approach the final workout and what to do. And I think that was a really awesome just growth experience, going through that adversity as a team and understanding how to keep centered around the big picture vision and not get lost in things that are already past. And then I think, after all of that happened, we get to the final workout, we've practiced the worm. Our team was really, really, really tight and precise with their ability to communicate with the worm. And I think, just got to be honest about mistakes that we've made. When we prepared with it, we had verbal cues. The music was way too loud there. And I think the team got so fired up from the previous event not going the way that they wanted to, that they went out too hot, and being off rhythm because the communication strategy was verbal and the people in the back couldn't hear the people in the front, made the team just lose way too much energy and way too much ground.
Going into that, I had forgotten how hard it is to simulate a competition environment. It's been 3 years since I've been at regionals. I've competed around people, I've done camps, I've done mock competitions, but nothing simulates the feeling and the emotions that go through your body when you hear stand by, beep. Like, you can't even describe it, you can't simulate it, you can't explain it. It's an out-of-body experience for most that haven't done it in a long time. And it's just something that, oh man, I miss so much. 3, 2, 1, go, you're out there on the floor. You don't even realize that you're already in the middle of it. It's so easy to kind of get ahead of yourself.
Went into event 6 with only 7 points out. So we were like, we can do this.
We've got so much riding. We all know in the back of our heads, like, if we deliver on this workout, there might be a chance that we could pull ahead and like actually make it in the top 5.
I remember hearing vividly, I'll probably dream about it, training think tank, 7 points out as we're on the start mat for event 6. And it's just like, Kyle's over here looking like he's going to kill someone. I'm like, hey, let's just go as hard as we can and see what happens. And we get into event 6. Honestly, you couldn't hear a person 2 people away from you.
We go out, 3, 2, 1, go. We pick up the worm and we start doing the reps. And I'm in the very front, and I can't hear a fucking thing. It is so loud. People are yelling, other teams, judges yelling. We pick up the worm, and I'm supposed to wait and hear for a call to go shoulder to overhead. I can't hear anything. Like, I'm just kind of trying to feel the worm go behind me and push it over and go back to the ground. I can look down when we're going to pick it up. I can see everyone pick it up, but then once it gets to the shoulder, like, I just can't. I'm basically out there blind. So eventually, like, I start figuring out that, like, the screen is up, at regionals, like, they've got a big jumbo screen, and I'm actually trying to watch that to find my team and watch them actually push the worm over. It was that loud, just everyone cheering. It's the final event of the final weekend for teams, and it just gassed me. Like, it was something that we weren't prepared for. We didn't have a plan to go into that with, what do we do if we can't hear our calls? We had a really good plan if we could all hear each other, but we couldn't. So that definitely, knocked us down a little bit. Made it more taxing than it should have been, and we didn't end up doing the best we could have on that event, which was a little disappointing, but we still finished pretty well on it. We ended up getting a top 10 in that event.
Takeaways with regards to events like that in the future: there needs to be nonverbal communication and some sort of communication strategy that allows the people in the front to be able to communicate what's happening from a judging perspective, because the judges are way in front of the worm, so the people are like 10 feet back and can't hear, and what the cadence is, the rhythm, who sets the pace of the worm, and all of just the little things that come with more practice and more exposure to a specific component.
So we finished event 6, we're laying on the floor, and then we got this long wait. And we know we're a bubble team. We know some of the teams that we needed to beat might have finished in front of us, but some of the teams that were ahead of us finished way behind us. So where are we sitting?
Felt like an eternity. May have only been 5 or 10 minutes, but we're just waiting around. They're tallying up the scores. I didn't know what was going on. It took them a while to tally up the scores, it seemed like, compared to some of the other regionals that I'd watched previous weekends. And after seeing some of the individuals, they were just tallying for a while, and then they finally forced us to our mats.
And we're sitting there, and we're just kind of talking like, was that enough? Are we going? What do you guys think? And all of a sudden, the one thing that I remember was there's 4 or 5 cameras on the floor for their live stream, and as soon as they finally, like, after what seemed like forever, you're looking around, you see probably everyone that in the crowd after, but you're looking around after that super long wait, and the camera guys start going towards teams that are in the top 5. Like, I could tell, like, the first team they go to, the camera guys at 12 Labors and Hustle Hard, the teams that finished in the top 2. And then after they announced those 2, I was standing in the front, and one of the camera guys came over to our lane, and I was thinking, what the fuck? Did we pull that off?
And I still didn't think that we had qualified or done what we needed to do, so I wasn't super nervous. And then so they announced the first, second, third place team, and then they go announce the 4th place team, and the cameras turn on us. So then my heart starts racing. I'm like, did we actually pull this off? And they announced the 4th place team. It wasn't us. And I was like, oh, the cameras are probably going to pan to a different team. They stayed on us. So the nerves and excitement got a little bit higher. Your hopes raised a little bit, and I was like, man, like, what if we did do this?
Because if we pulled that, I mean, it was like, all of a sudden I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, we might have actually pulled that off. And, we keep waiting, other teams get announced, and we hear that final team get announced.
And then they announced 5th place team, and it wasn't us. So I went from not thinking we did it with 0 disappointment if they would have announced us as a 6th place team, to my hopes rising, and then actually being somewhat disappointed when we didn't make it. So I was sad for a while after they announced that 5th place team, seeing we got 6th, knowing it wasn't by many points. But then at the same time, thinking back of how well we did and how much we exceeded our expectations of when we put this team together. We were hoping for a top 15 finish.
You're a little crushed in the moment. You work for so long, the whole year, grinding together as a team. The whole weekend is just exhausting. But honestly, after being so close, I know it's got all 6 of us and all of Training Think Tank fired up and ready to freaking go for next year.
It just wasn't in the cards this year. It's not something that we're disappointed with. It's not something that we feel like was unfair or anything like that. Like, we got as close to we could have to feel success for the weekend without actually getting it. And what I mean by success is qualifying for that spot. I think that this was everything that we needed to experience to make us stronger and actually help us adapt and grow to come back next year and win. I can't think of anything else that could have been thrown at us that's not going to help us for next year. We experienced so much as a team, and we overcame so much as a team in such a short weekend that I'm so grateful for all of it that happened. It was like, if I could pick a list of all the 5 worst things that can happen to you in a regionals, injuries, scoring errors, judging, like all those things that are part of competition, they all happened to us, and we all had to deal with it in one weekend. So it was really dense, and we handled it really well.
Right after event 6, you feel loss, and there's a grieving process that needs to happen to get yourself back in a mind state to get back to work. And each person has to go through that process themselves. For myself, I don't know what it says about me as a coach or as an athlete, but I think I've lost so many times and not given up that I've learned how to go through that process quickly. So I felt a lot of pain after I found out that they took 6th place. And I start going through my head and thinking back to my coaching experiences and seeing Travis lose in 2015 and seeing what that loss did to change his psyche and fire him up and make him a better athlete moving forward. And so I know that deep down inside, that as painful as that experience is and as much as it sucks, that there's a growth opportunity for every single member of that team. So I'm honestly just fired up. And when I talk to them and when I think about the future, all I can think is that this adversity and this near miss, getting almost to the point that you made your dream and your ambition of making it as a team to the games, and just being that close and failing might actually be the best thing that happened to them. There's a reason why there are so few people that leave a legacy as athletes. And that's true outside of athletics as well. But everybody gets opportunities, and your success is dependent upon you seizing those opportunities and making something happen for your future. And it will be interesting to see if you guys as a team can capitalize on that opportunity. So this next year will be about whether or not you can make it happen.
Just because I'm out of town does not mean you get to exclude me. All I gotta say is next year, look out, because we're coming.
My biggest fear going into regionals was Joey farting on me on the floor.
Oh, farting on Macy. So let's talk about just the farting backstory. So it was one of the first times, it might have been the first time that we ever trained together as a team. We were doing some heavy squat cleans, and I think it was like, I don't know, the weight doesn't matter, 315 maybe. And I got in the bottom of my squat and I let out a little toot, and everyone heard it and everyone started laughing. And that was the fart saga round 1. And then round 2, that was farting on Macy at regionals, was actually round 3.
Joey's farted on me way too many times.
Round 2 was when we were doing a little bit of training with the worm. And I believe it was the same workout, the worm push press. And, sometimes you get that push press, you're squeezing your butt a little bit, and then when you go back down, you're not squeezing your butt, and sometimes you just got fart. And, well, Macy was lucky enough to be behind me.
25, 26, whatever. And so we get to a point, and it was just the loudest. And everybody had to stop. I was laughing too hard.
And what was cool about being at regionals is that event 4 was so loud that she couldn't hear it. And those were some pretty good farts. We ended up talking about it afterwards, but it's not like I'm going to tell her, as she goes to do her legless rope climb, hey, Macy, I just farted on you. No. But she did get farted on repeatedly.